For centuries, man has relied upon the luminaries for seasonal timekeeping, and the moon, because of its changing phases, was and is still used for appointed times. Sometimes it's high in the sky, some nights it's a slither, and at times it disappears completely before becoming new, and this cycle repeats every month. The Chinese, Sumerians, and Babylonians depended upon the moon cycles to help determine their days, months, and years. In both ancient and modern Israel, the moon still marks the beginning and end of months and is still used in conjunction with the sun as a part of biblical calendation, which consists of being a sign for days, years, and appointed times. Since the beginning, the luminaries were appointed for timekeeping via the instructions in the book of Genesis. In the very beginning, we are given instructions from our Creator on how to keep Moedim, or appointed times. Elohim said, "Let there be lights in the firmaments of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years." Sign in Hebrew is oath. Oath means mark, miracle, sign, and ensign. Oath comes from avah, meaning signal, draw, mark, or to sign. So the luminaries are signals whose purpose is to be marked for time. They are signals for seasons and for days and years, as we do observe them for calendation. As Torah states, the moon assists the sun in governing time. Along with the sun, it is a signal for seasons, days, and years. In this manner, they operate as the original calendar made by our Elohim, and not by man. The moon is a sign for days. It assists the sun in governing the day by being a signal for a concession of days and weeks. In Hebrew, Eshauva is a time period of 7 days and is used to define 7 years also. Shauba comes from the word Shabbat, which means 7. This is directly tied to the Sabbath or Shabbat that we observe on the 7th day. All lunar months consist of 4 Shaubas. As the moon remains illuminated for a period of 28 days, it will be void of light for up to 2 days during conjunction between the earth and sun, prior to giving the signal for a new month. Being our watch in the sky, the moon is the only luminary that can tell us which day and week of the month we're in. It can also help us know when a month begins and when that month ends, when a new year begins and when that year ends. So the question becomes, when do we observe this moment? When do the months end and when do they begin? And more importantly, is full moon the new moon? In the Book of Beginnings, we can see that Elohim made the sun and moon with a purpose in creation. The moon was created to divide the day from the night, to be a sign, to govern his appointed time of meeting, to number the days and years, and to rule over the night and stars. It was called the lesser light, in comparison to the sun, the greater light. In light of recent events, there seems to be somewhat of a confusion as to when new moon is, what Chodesh is, and how this relates to the appointed times of our Creator. So to keep it very simple, let's begin with new moon. In Hebrew, the word new is Chodesh. This word varies depending on how it's used. When it's used as a verb, Chodesh 23:18 is then used to describe that verb. When this verb is used in conjunction with the moon, it is describing an event that is taking place. The moon is dark, we're building its light and repairing it. When the moon is repairing its light, it cannot be seen. The astronomical term for this is lunar conjunction, and by extension is Chodesh 23:18. Another context of Chodesh is Chodesh 23:19. 23:19 also varies, as it also means new. But when this word is used in conjunction with the moon, it is used as an adjective, meaning that it describes the actual state of the noun. It means new thing or fresh new thing. While Chodesh 2318 is used to describe the moon repairing a lunar conjunction, Chodesh 2319 is used to describe the moon when it's come out of lunar conjunction. Thus, when the moon is seen, it is a fresh new thing. And when this fresh new thing is seen, it is the moment of Chodesh. Chodesh has two meanings. The first meaning is a month. When Chodesh is used to reference a month, it refers to a measurement of time within a lunar cycle. A Chodesh of days, or month of days, is mentioned in Genesis 29 and 14, and Numbers 11, 20 through 21, meaning a period of 29 or 30 days, which is the equivalent to the phrase a Yarech, which is a month of days. We see this connection in a number of instances in which Chodesh is used interchangeably with the word Yarech, the common biblical Hebrew word for moon, which by extension also means month. For example, we can see that both Yarech and Chodesh are used in 1 Kings 6 and 1. They are also used again together in 1 Kings 8 and 2. Yarech is the Hebrew word for moon. However, its root word, Yareach, means both moon and month, and only refers to lunar months. Clearly then, Chodesh is related to Yarech, which itself literally means moon. The second meaning of Chodesh is new moon. It is the actual moment that a new month begins as it relates to lunar cycles. A new month begins after the old one, after the old moon has finished up its previous cycle, and after it's finished rebuilding or renewing its concealment in darkness. Within the moment of Chodesh, the new moon will appear on the last day of the month for a very short period of time. It appears about 20 to 30 minutes after the sun has set, but before the stars appear. This time is also known between the evenings. On the morning that the new moon is to become visible, the sun will rise first. The moon will rise after the sun. The moon will not be seen during the daylight hours as the moon follows the sun across the sky. It will be absorbing its light from the sun. By the end of the last day of the month, it will contain 1% or 3% of light. If the month is 29 days long, the moon will become 1% lit. If it is a 30-day month, the moon will contain 3% of light. When the sun sets, it will take 20 to 30 minutes before the moon can become visible. This is because the light from the sun has to fall below the amount of light absorbed by the moon. This visibility will occur between the time of sunset and the appearance of the stars. This is the time known as between the evenings, which is between sunset and the stars appearing. Thus, the moment of Chodesh takes place between the evenings. Is there any historical data on this theory of full moon being the beginning of the month? Is full moon new moon, or is it just mere theory based on false assumption? One historical record of full moon is written in the work of Philo of Alexandria, Egypt. Philo was a Jewish philosopher who lived approximately 20 BCE until about 50 CE. Thus, he lived prior to the Messiah's birth and also the years following his death. Here's what Philo observed regarding the full moon. He gives a second witness in unmating with the preliminary studies. For it is said in Scripture, on the 10th day of this month, let each of them take a sheep according to his house, in order that from the 10th they may be consecrated to the 10th, that is, to Elohim, the sacrifices which have been preserved in the soul. which is illuminated in 2 portions out of the 3, until it is entirely changed in every part and becomes a heavenly brilliancy like a full moon at the height of its increase at the end of the 2nd week. Note, Philo is talking about the preparation of the lamb that begins on the 10th day of Abib, as mentioned in Exodus 12:3. Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, in the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for a house. In Philo's notation, the 10th day is recorded for the sacrificing of the lamb. According to Philo, the full moon is at the end of the 2nd week, just as Passover takes place at the end of the 2nd week, and is not related at all to Chodesh, which is associated with the beginning of the month. In Special Laws, Philo writes, there is one principle of reason by which the moon waxes and wanes at equal intervals, both as it increases and diminishes in illumination. The 7 lambs, because it receives its perfect shapes in periods of 7 days. The half moon in the first 7-day period after its conjunction with the sun. Full moon in the 2nd, and when it makes its return again, the first half moon, then it ceases as it is conjunction with the sun. Note, in clear detail, Philo is giving yet another depiction of the moon phases, and by observation, Philo says the full moon takes place in the 2nd Shauba, or 7-day period. Philo describes the lunar phases as the moon perfects its own configurations on each 7th day. Notice that Philo did not call full moon new moon, and that the full moon takes place by the 2nd week. Please let what Philo just said sink in. Philo was just observing what took place at that time in Israel. His readers in those days understood that the weeks were by the moon, same as in Scripture, and that at the end of the 2nd week there would be a full moon. This statement needs no further interpretation, as it is impossible to misunderstand. What is left now is the willingness to accept the truth, and the truth is, full moon is not new moon. There is no scriptural evidence to support the superstition that full moon is the beacon for new moon day. Those who teach that full moon is the new moon do so primarily based on assumptions and misinterpretations. Some read Psalms 81:3 and conclude that the new moon is a holy feast day, and also because of mistranslation that the new moon is the full moon and not the first light of Chodesh. The King James Version reads, blow up the trumpet in the new moon in the time appointed on our solemn feast day. Time appointed is the Hebrew root kasah. It means to plump, fill up hollows, or to cover. This best describes the moon being covered in light, and is used as a verb to describe the moon when it is becoming full or being completely covered in light. The word that describes the moon when it is full is kaseh. Neither kasah nor kaseh even slightly hints or means beginning or new. They both refer to the moon when it is full, which takes place in the middle of the lunar month. Vine's Complete Explanatory Dictionary states that the appointed time is a full moon totally filled with light and on which a solemn feast day occurs. Does Some mean that the new moon is the full moon. Most Hebrew words have multiple meanings. Some errors come from the fact that prior to the year 600 CE, there were no standardized vowel points. Other problems of translation come from significant differences between biblical Hebrew and secular Hebrew, which have changed over the centuries as all common languages do. The New King James Version and some other translations add to the confusion by not translating Psalms 81:3 precisely. Blow the trumpet at the time of new moon, at the full moon on our solemn feast day. One immediate problem is nowhere in Scripture is the regular monthly new moon referred to as a feast day, nor is it full moon. Other translations clear this problem up by showing two completely different and separate observances in this verse. Sound the ram's horn at the new moon when the moon is full at the day of our feast. Psalms 81:3, Elohim is speaking of a new moon as well as another observance or appointed time that comes at full moon. During each of these separate times, the trumpet was to sound. The Hebrew, in fact, reveals two distinct clauses in this passage, making a definite division of thought. The first is the trumpet as applying to new moon. The second is the trumpet as it applies to a solemn feast day, which is by biblical definitions different from a regular monthly new moon. The Biblia Hebraica states, blow up the trumpet at the new moon and in the fullness of our festive day. The interlinear NIV states, sound the ram's horn at the new moon and when the moon is full on the day of our feast. The complete Jewish Bible reads, sound the shofar at Rosh Chodesh and at full moon for the pilgrim feast. The Psalms for today states, sound the trumpet at the new moon and at the day of our festival when the moon is full. These Hebrew-based translations show that the new moon is different from the full moon and different from a feast day. The Hebrew shows that the new moon and the full moon are not synonymous. The first is barely visible and the second is totally visible. Different words are used for each. New moon day is nowhere called a shag in Scripture. Some who believe that this method would argue that it is not true by quoting Hosea 2:11 and Ezekiel 45:17. But the new moons in those texts are mentioned apart from the Sabbath and shag. New moon day is primarily intended to be a day of worship, as stated in Ezekiel 46:1-5 and Isaiah 66:23. Chodesh, on the other hand, refers to the new moon and is never used for full moon. Another historical point of reference is that of the Apocrypha. Whether one wishes to accept what is commonly known as the Apocryphal writings is of no consequence, as they were once a part of the 1611 King James Version, as well as other accepted compilations. The Book of Ecclesiasticus is a work from the early 2nd century BCE, written by the Jewish scribe Joshua ben Sirach of Jerusalem, who lived before Philo. So let's start off with Ecclesiasticus. In Ecclesiasticus 43:7, it states, from the moon is a sign of the feast, a light that decreaseth in her perfection. Please note in the Greek translation, it also states the same. In the Greek text, the moon is a sign of feast, a luminary that diminisheth upon completion. This outright refers to the transition from light to darkness, and the light diminisheth or disappears when the cycle is complete. The Greek word for completion and the Hebrew word for completion, the definitions are the same. They both mean to complete, to end, to be finished, final, conclude, to accomplish or finish. Please note that when the moon cycle reaches its end and completion, it is called Chodesh 2318, as it is rebuilding. Now notice again how the end of the moon cycles is directly tied to Chodesh, which is tied to Chodesh, and not the middle of the month when the full moon occurs. Completion means that it's at an end. This verse speaks of the feast first, and that the moon is the sign of them, but the light diminishes upon completion. This shows that the full moon is not new moon, as well as neither the full moon a feast or a chag. This works in conjunction with all of the scripture, which show no proof of a full moon being neither a new moon or being a feast. Another historical and biblical reference would be the book of Enoch. Enoch mentions in full detail the elements and behaviors of the full moon and how to determine when the moon is full. So let's begin with the observation of the full moon. Enoch 73:8 states, "Then it comes out and recedes toward the east, away from where the sun rises, continuing to be brighter in 1/6 of 1/7 of 1/2 of light of the sun during the remaining days." As a general rule, the moon will fill with 7% of light each day of a new month. 7 times 14 equals 98%. The rest of the light comes from the last day of the month. It's again very clear that the moon will travel toward the east throughout the month, usually by the middle of the month. When the moon is fully illuminated, it's going to be in the middle of the sky in the morning, and then continue eastward. Enoch 78:13 states, "She becomes full exactly on the day when the sun sets in the west, and from the east she rises at night. And the moon shines through the whole night until the sun rises over against her, and the moon is seen over against the sun." The 13th verse is stating that when the sun sets in the west and the moon rises in the east, this is how to determine when the moon is full. The next morning the moon will be seen in the west when full, as the sun rises in the east. This is showing the day of the full moon to be the middle of a month. Both sources of Enoch and the Apocrypha refer to the moon's light as full in the middle of the month, and not the beginning. A very clear issue is presented when reckoning new moon day by the full moon, and that the moon from day one is being torn down, losing light, not being renewed. Immediately after the moon is full, it begins to yield its light. This means that if you use full moon as new moon, between the evening that the new moon is declared and the morning that it's recognized as new moon day, the moon will have already lost light and will continue to lose light until the middle of the month, after which it will again begin to rebuild. The full moon reckoning defies all logic and is not true to the meaning of the words Chodesh or Chodesh. There is no biblical or historical data that even slightly suggests that the new moon is full moon. And there is absolutely no historical evidence to suggest that any nation in the Middle East has ever used a full moon as new moon. Many are trying to push this unsound doctrine without any facts, without any historical data to validate such an illogical theory. This is clearly done out of misinterpretation of scripture and of the components of Chodesh. After watching many moon cycles on a daily basis, year after year, we see that the disappearance of the old moon for 1 or 2 days just before the sun rises creates a natural kind of break. Astronomically, the conjunction occurs during this time when you cannot see the moon. After these 1 or 2 days, the crescent moon will become visible in the western sky between the evenings. Now, this cycle observed by men for centuries, begins again. Hence, the reappearance of the moon as the crescent after 1 or 2 days of not being able to see it is called the moment of Chodesh, or new moon, and will occur at the last day of the month. The moment of Chodesh, being the reappearance of the moon in the form of a very tiny crescent, proves that the moment of Chodesh does not take place in the middle of the month.